Hi dear children, welcome back to the another session of our biology. This is the continuation of how do organisms reproduce. Okay, so we discussed several modes of reproduction etc. in our last class. So today we are going to see sexual reproduction. So how we can define sexual reproduction? Sexual reproduction, it's the production of new individuals which enables or which involves the fusion of the male gamete and female gamete that we have studied in our lower session. Right. Now, we can start the class by a question. Let me ask you a question. Why sexual mode of reproduction? Is the question clear? Why sexual mode of reproduction? Last class we discussed variety of mode of reproduction and all that results in the formation of offsprings. Right. Then why? What is the significance of this sexual reproduction? So I'll tell you the creation of new cells or two cells are formed from one cell. Creation of two new cells from one cell by the DNA also are copied along with the division of the cellular apparatus, and we have discussed in detail how it is being divided and how it is being done. So altogether this results in the variation, isn't it? This results in this copying. Since the DNA copying won't be exactly or absolutely accurate, some sort of errors would be there. That errors are known as this magical term, that is the variations, isn't it? Variation. So before going to the deeper version of variation, let me remind you that every individual can't be protected by variation, but in a population, variation are useful for the survival of the species. Did you get that? In a population, this variation is quite important for the survival of the species. Then, I'll give you an example. See, in this situation, corona is affecting the human races, right? But all human beings are not prone to death. Majority are survived. How? Because of this variation. Understood? In a population, how this variation is helping. Clear? So, each new variation made with the DNA copying. See, each new variation is formed by the DNA copying. This DNA copy has already variation accumulated from the previous generation, isn't it? We are having some variation. We got this DNA from our parents. Our parents were also having their own variations that they got from their parents. That is from their previous generation. So we are having the variations from the previous generation and we are giving the variation to the next generation also. Clear? So it is inherited. It is passed from one generation to another generation. Variation. Is that clear? So combining variations from two or more individuals. Create new variation, isn't it? We derived our variations from our parents, our mother and father. Two variations are there. So combining our parents' variation, we got a new variation. From our variation, this variation will be transferred to our kids, next generation. Is that clear? So each variation is novel. My variation is novel, identical or unique. Understood? Is that clear? And how this variation along with the chromosome number and DNA and all are ensured? I told that only half of the DNA or half of the chromosome number is being transferred to the next generation in order to avoid the messing up of the chromosome. That will ultimately results in a production of a variety of a new species. It can't be promoted. So in order to ensure the DNA or the genetic makeup, half of the chromosome is being transferred from one generation to the next generation. Now, how is this done? Yes, this is done. This is ensured by a special division known as meiotic division. What does that division known as? Meiotic division. That means it is also known as reductional division. See, altogether our chromosome is 46 number, isn't it? So 46, when considering 46, this meiotic division is happening only in the gametic cells. Clear? Gametic cells means male gamete, that is sperm, and in female gamete, ovum. See, from the male, 46 chromosome. Male is having 46 chromosome. So in the gametic cell, they will be having only 23. In the case of male, male is represented by this icon. Okay. And female is represented by this icon. And female is also having 46 chromosome. And out of this, they are having the reductional division in the cell, and they are having only 23 cells in their gametic cells. They will fuse together to form 46 in the zygote. Clear? So this is how the DNA or the chromosome number is ensured. Is that clear? That 46 number undergo meiotic division, and that 23 will be stored in the gametic division, gametic cells at the time of fusion. Is that clear? Okay, I hope it's clear to you. If you are finding any doubt, you can call me. So that's why in the gametic cells only half number of chromosome will be maintained at the time of fusion. Then only at the time of fusion, then they fuse together, the formed zygote will be having 46 chromosome. Okay. So that is why the sexual reproduction is promoted. Variation is ensured in sexual reproduction. Is that clear? So that is the answer for why sexual reproduction. So now we are getting into the sexual reproduction, and first of all we are seeing the sexual reproduction in flowering plants. This you have studied in your lower class, that is typically in the 7th standard. Plants which bear flowers are known as flowering plants, and the sexual reproduction is a characteristic feature of this flowering plants. Clear? So, and you know that flower is the reproductive part. Flower is the reproductive part. And when we are checking the parts of the flower, what are the parts of flower included? Sepals, petals, stamens, then pistils. Clear? And out of this is the male reproductive part. We can represent by the icon. And this is the female reproductive part. Okay. So we can get into the detailed version of this. Before going to this, let me have a glance on unisexual flowers and bisexual flowers. Okay. Unisexual flowers. Unisexual flowers are of two types, unisexual flowers and bisexual flowers. What are unisexual flowers? Flowers which have either stamen or pistil. Such flowers are known as unisexual flowers. Example, papaya, watermelon, pumpkin, then cucumber, etc. Flowers which have either the stamen or the pistil. They are known as unisexual flowers. And bisexual flowers, flowers that have both stamen and pistil. Example, rose, lily, mustard, China rose, then hibiscus. Typical example, hibiscus. Clear? Then coming back to the portion, male and female reproductive part. First of all, we can check with the male reproductive part of the flower, that is the stamen. Stamen, you know that is the male reproductive part, and it has two parts, anther and filament. The top part is swollen and it is known as the anther. It contains pollen grains. Pollen grains are the male gametes. You might be seeing that they are generally yellow in color. Typically in hibiscus and all we can see that the pollen grains, they are yellow in color. They are the male gamete. Okay, pollen grains are the male gamete, and the filament is the green stalk-like structure. That is anther and filament. Then coming to the pistil. Pistil is the female reproductive part of the flower, and it in turn consists of three parts, that is stigma, style and ovary. Stigma, style and ovary. So the top sticky part is known as the stigma. The middle elongated tube which connect the stigma and ovary is known as the style, and the bottom swollen part is known as the ovary. And ovary contains the ovule. Ovule is responsible for the production of the female gamete. So inside an ovule, only one female gamete is there. Clear? Only one female gamete. So the male germ cell produced by the pollen grains fuses with the female gamete produced by the ovule, which is seen inside the ovary. So this fusion of the male germ cell with the female germ cell is known as the fertilization, and that results in the formation of zygote. So for this fertilization, first of all, the pollen grains from the anther have to fall on the stigma. That transfer or that process is known as what? Yes, the process of transfer of anther to the stigma is known as pollination. Isn't it? Pollination. Again, pollination is of two types: self-pollination and cross-pollination. What is self-pollination? Self-pollination, pollen grains from the anther of a flower falls to the stigma of the same flower or another flower of the same plant. Clear? Falling of the pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of the same flower or to another flower of the same plant is known as self-pollination. See, suppose this is a plant, several flowers will be here, there and all. If the anther falls into the stigma of the same flower or the anther falls into the stigma of another flower of the same plant, that constitutes for the self-pollination. And cross-pollination is the transfer of anther from the flower, transfer of the pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of another flower of another plant of same species. Suppose in a garden, many plants will be there. Rose plants will be there, hibiscus plant will be there, mango trees will be there, banana trees will be there, etc. will be there. So in cross-pollination, the anthers should fall. If the anthers of rose or hibiscus should fall to the flowers of hibiscus itself. Another plant of hibiscus, but the same species. Hibiscus pollen grains when fallen to the rose plant, no use. Isn't it? Hibiscus anther too has to be fallen to the hibiscus plant itself. So same species you have to write specifically. Clear? So pollen grains or the anther will fall to the stigma of another flower of different plant of same species. I hope it's clear. So that's all about pollination. Now the fertilization has constituted by the falling of the anther to the stigma of the flower. Now for the pollination several agents are there, isn't it? Wind are there, insect are there, we human beings are there. With the help of our dress and all, we unknowingly carry the pollen grains, and that pollen may fall into the another flower of the same species. So we are the agents of cross pollinations and all, isn't it? So now we are going to see fertilization is over. Now we are going to see the post fertilization events. Post means after the fertilization. After fertilization, what happened to zygote? Zygote will undergo rapid division and they form embryo. Embryo. Clear? And they will be safely protected inside the ovule. Now, what happens to the ovule? Ovule will gradually develop a hard protective cord which so as to protect this embryo. Ovule have a tough hard protective cord and gradually change into seed. Ovule will change into seed and the ovary will form the ripened fruit. The fruit we are eating is actually the ovary, right? So ovary. Then what is the fate of these sepals, petals, style, stigma and all? They fall off. Clear? So these are the pre-fertilization, fertilization and post-fertilization. In pre-fertilization, we came to understood unisexual, bisexual reproductive parts and how pollination is affected. Then fertilization happened. Then post-fertilization events. Clear? So I am winding up today's class. I hope it's clear. It's nothing but the repetition version of the 7th standard. Study it carefully. You can check with your 7th standard textbook. Maintain the notes and study carefully. Read the textbook. Okay, read the textbook. Still you are finding any kind of doubt, you can contact me personally. Okay, stay safe, be happy. Ta-ta.